They said she was useless. That no man would ever want her. No family could afford to feed another mouth that didn't earn its share. When the wagon came that morning, dust curling behind it like smoke from hell itself, her mother didn't even look her in the eye. "It's for the best, Mary," she muttered, voice sharp as broken glass. "You'll be fed there, maybe even find work." But Mary knew what those words meant. The old man in the wagon didn't want help. He wanted ownership. The weight of a coin purse exchanged in silence sealed her fate, and the world that had once been filled with childish laughter turned to silence colder than the wind rolling off the mountain peaks. She was 17, small, timid, but her eyes still carried a spark that refused to die. And that spark would draw the attention of one man, someone the world called mad, someone who lived far from people because he had lost his faith in them long ago. But before she would find him, she had to crawl through the pit of human cruelty. The cabin she was sold into wasn't a home, it was a prison. The man who bought her didn't want a daughter or a wife, he wanted someone to bear the weight of his own anger. For months, Mary endured the hunger, the fear, the blows that came without reason. At night, she prayed for the mountains to swallow her, for God to forget her name so pain could forget her too. But fate doesn't always answer prayers with mercy. Sometimes it answers with storms. And one winter night, the storm came. The roof caved in, and the man who owned her ran out screaming, leaving her trapped beneath splintered wood and snow. She clawed her way out, barefoot, trembling, the cold biting through her bones until she no longer felt her hands. She walked toward the forest, guided by nothing but instinct, the need to get away. For 3 days, she wandered until she collapsed near the base of the mountain. That's where he found her, Elias Kane, the man who hadn't spoken to another soul in 2 years, the mountain ghost people whispered about. He was tall, bearded, eyes the color of steel under frost. When he saw her, half dead, lips blue, skin pale as the snow around her, he didn't speak. He just lifted her into his arms and carried her back to his cabin in the woods. The world might have called him a monster, but that night, he became her miracle. When Mary woke, she thought she had died. The warmth around her felt like a dream, the crackling fire like a memory her heart refused to believe. But when she turned her head and saw him, Elias, sitting beside her, carving a piece of wood with hands that looked like they'd fought the wilderness itself, she realized she was still alive. The cabin was simple, built of rough logs and love long forgotten by the world. There were no pictures, no woman's touch, only silence broken by the sound of the wind against the walls. "You're safe now," he said quietly, not looking at her. His voice was deep, unused, but steady. "Eat, rest," and that was all. For days, neither spoke much. He cooked what little he had, tended to her frostbitten feet, and when nightmares came, he sat near the fire until she calmed. Slowly, she learned his name, his story. Elias Kane had once been a rancher, a husband, and a father, but bandits had taken both away. He came to the mountains to escape men, to escape the pain. And now, without knowing why, he had taken in a broken girl the world had already thrown away. In those silent days, something strange began to grow between them. Not love at first, but a kind of unspoken understanding. Two souls who had both been beaten by life finding shelter in each other's scars. Sometimes, when she caught him staring at the mountains through the window, his eyes looked like they were searching for ghosts. And sometimes, when he caught her humming softly while cooking, he almost smiled. Almost. As spring came, so did color in her cheeks and light in his eyes. The forest around their cabin began to thaw, and so did the space between their hearts. He taught her how to chop wood, how to fish, how to listen to the forest. She taught him how to laugh again, even if it was small and quiet. Yet, for all their warmth, the past is a shadow that never truly disappears. One morning, riders came up the mountain, men from the nearby town who had once dealt with Elias before he disappeared into solitude. They weren't looking for him, though. They were looking for her. Mary's old owner had survived the storm and wanted her back, claiming she was his property. When the men demanded Elias hand her over, his jaw tightened. "She's no one's property," he said, standing in the doorway, shotgun in hand. "You'll turn around and forget you ever came here." But men with greed in their hearts don't back down from kindness. They came at night, with torches and guns, thinking an old mountain man would be easy prey. They were wrong. Elias fought like a man with nothing to lose, because he didn't. Bullets flew through the cold night, echoing across the valley. Mary screamed for him to run, but he didn't. He stood his ground until the last shot fired, and silence fell heavier than snow. When Mary crawled out from behind the table, her heart stopped. Elias was on the floor, bleeding, his eyes glassy but still gentle. She pressed her hands against the wound, tears mixing with blood. "No, please, you can't," she sobbed. His hand rose weakly to touch her face. "You're free now, Mary," he whispered. "Don't waste it hiding. Build something, live." She clung to him until the fire died, until the world turned quiet again. By dawn, the mountain had taken back one of its own. The first morning after Elias's death was the hardest. The fire had gone out, and the world outside the cabin seemed colder than ever. Mary sat beside his still form, wrapped in his old coat, the smell of pine and smoke still clinging to it. She didn't cry anymore, she couldn't. Grief had burned through her like a fever, leaving only silence behind. The men who'd come to take her never returned. The mountain swallowed them, just like it did everything else that didn't belong there. For days, Mary moved like a ghost, cleaning the blood, fixing the broken door, patching the roof where bullets had torn through. Not because she had the strength, but because he had told her to live. And those were the last words she'd ever let die. As spring crept over the snow, she buried Elias beneath the great pine by the stream, where the water always sang. She carved his name into a stone, though she barely knew the letters. Then she planted wildflowers around it, whispering through tears, "You gave me a home when I had nothing. I'll make sure it never fades." That day, something inside her changed. The girl who once trembled in fear was gone. What remained was the woman he'd believed she could become. Through the seasons, Mary rebuilt the cabin. She chopped wood, hunted, fished, and learned the land the way Elias had. Sometimes, when the wind swept through the valley, she could almost hear his voice in it, soft, steady, guiding her hands. Travelers passing through the mountains began to speak of a strange young woman who lived alone, who would offer food and shelter to anyone lost or broken. They said she was quiet, kind, and strong as the land itself. Some said she was a widow. Others said she was a ghost. But those who met her eyes knew the truth. She was both, carrying love and loss in equal measure. One autumn evening, while she was gathering firewood, she found something buried beneath the old cabin floorboards, a small wooden box. Carved with Elias's initials. Inside were letters, faded with time, written to a wife and child he'd once had. In the last letter, he'd written, "If I can't return, I pray someone finds peace in these walls. Let this cabin hold another soul, so my hands might still do good even when I'm gone." Mary clutched the letter to her chest, sobbing not from pain this time, but gratitude. He had saved her life not once, but twice, first with his kindness, then with his memory. When winter came again, she lit the fire and hung his old hat by the door. "You'll always be here," she whispered, "and I'll keep the light burning." And so she did, every night. For years, the cabin became a beacon to lost souls, a symbol of quiet strength built by two broken hearts that had learned how to heal.